Hello and welcome to another video for Midas Touch Toys, Games, Collectibles. And today we're looking at something that is now quite old and becoming harder and harder to find. We are looking at the 1974 release by World Distributors from their series of Star Trek comic albums. And this particular one we're looking at today is of the comic album which contained, I think they contained 4 complete comic strip stories, and they were suitable for colouring or crowning, so they was all in black and white, and the stories that featured in these albums were stories that had featured in the annuals at some point prior to the release of this comic album, obviously. Okay, so this is the front cover, and it says Star Trek comic album, and here you can see an image. You've got the USS Enterprise flying overhead. You've got Kirk, Spock, and not quite sure who that is meant to be at the back there, running through an alien terrain. And it says also suitable for colouring and crowning. Authorised edition as seen on BBC TV. Okay, so remember that Star Trek aired originally in 1966, but the UK was a little bit later, excuse me, and then of course there was an awful lot of reruns of Star Trek. It kept being rerun and rerun and rerun. And in the 1970s, it was very big and popular again, just as it was back in the 1960s. Anyway, that's the front cover. Let's just turn it over and see what's on the back. Okay, so the back cover is exactly the same as the front cover. Star Trek comic album, same image. It says also suitable for colouring and crown, authorised edition as seen on BBC TV. And this side has the SBN number, which is 7235192334. Okay, that's the front and back covers. So without further ado, let's turn it back over, open it up, and let's have a look inside. Okay, so I have opened the comic album. This is the first page, as you can see. You can see there is some slight browning on the inside of the front cover and along the page edges, and that's due to age and the type of paper that was used back in the day, because it wasn't the greatest quality paper that they used in these early books. Okay, so you've got all the copyright information on the bottom left-hand corner of the second page, and the first story is called Star Trek: The Youth Trap. Now, as you can see, this one has actually had some colouring in done on it, very, very neatly, I might add, and it looks absolutely great. But this is the type of colouring that you can do on these. So there's some of it's been done with crayon, some of it's been done with pen. I think some of it's been done with paint there by the looks of things. And that's felt tip as well, so some of it has actually been done. But this is the first story. The crew of the Enterprise find themselves guinea pigs for a crazed AN who possesses a fantastic machine, and it appears that no power in the universe can prevent the bizarre transformation of Captain Kirk's men as one by one they begin an incredible return to infancy. Okay, so that is the first page, and there you can see unfortunately some of the colour in here, because it's been done with a felt tip, has bled through. You do get that on these books. As I say, the paper wasn't the greatest, but you can see that some of it has been very, very nicely coloured in, and others have been left. But yeah, I mean, look at that, some great colouring in there, really well done. And this is, as I say, this particular story had appeared in one of the annuals. I can't remember which annual it was, but it had been in in fact, all of the stories in this book had previously been in the annuals. So here we now get to a stage where the colouring has been finished. No one's actually, tell a lie, so there's a little bit more that's gone on there, and you see some more. There's some more from the next page, but otherwise it is a full black and white comic strip story, and then that was the first part, and now we come on to the Youth Trap part 2. Now in the annuals they used to separate the stories, so you'd have part 1 and part 2 again, and this is done exactly the same way, except that the annuals had them all coloured in, and this being that it's a comic book for you to colour, is obviously all in black and white, so hence the reason why there's no colouring in this one. But again, there we are, some more colouring has been done on here. say unfortunately, because of the paper, it does bleed through. So crayoning is probably the best thing to use on these books. If you have one and you wanted to colour it, I think crayons would be the best thing because they don't bleed through like felt tips and paint does. So, but here we are. This is the second part of the adventure, and I think that's the last page actually. Yes, so it says returning to the ship, filaments are manufactured and the thrust of mighty engines launches the Enterprise into the darkness of space, seeking new adventures. When Starfleet Command received our report, they thought we'd all gone a little space happy, Mr. Spock. Naturally, Captain, one would have to be a victim of the Age Ray machine to believe its existence. There we go. So that is the end of the first story. And then it comes into a peep into the future. And that says, watching Star Trek on television is one thing, but how would you like to live in such an advanced era? Well, look no further than 2 or 3 steps into the future, and you'll be on the threshold of life just like that. How would you like to live on an asteroid, cook your meals in a rocket hurtling through space, or get your post by rocket? There you go. So that's, I won't read the whole section. And then you've got information on City in the Sky, and yeah, it's all futuristic things. Even some of it now is still futuristic. Okay, next story is called The Legacy of Lazarus, and again, this is another story that appeared in an annual. I think this was in the 1974 or 1973 annual, something like that. But again, it is all in black and white for you to colour in at your leisure. And if you've got the annual with this story in, you'll know what the colours on the story are, because it was printed in colour in the annuals, and you could follow that to colour it in if you wished. Or you could also keep it in the black and white format that it is if you like. It's entirely up to you, as these books were originally designed to be coloured. So again, this is the Lazarus story. I'm not quite sure what these marks are on the bottom here. They're part of the pages, but they've all got numbers on them, but I'm not quite sure why they're on there. And they've obviously been printed with the comic strip, but I don't quite understand what they are and what they mean, but never mind. Okay, so that brings us to the end of that comic strip, and then we've got The Way to an Astronaut's Heart, and it tells you all about an astronaut and what they have to eat and how they go to prepare their meals and so on while they're away in space. The next story is called Star Trek The Voodoo Planet. It says, in all the explorations of space, the Starship Enterprise had never encountered such an incredible sight. It staggered the minds of the most seasoned voyagers, for they had rocketed into the most terrifying world of the universe on the Voodoo Planet. There we go. So if you know what voodoo is, you know how terrifying it can be. It looks like Paris there. The Eiffel Tower by the looks of things, but there we are. But again, it is another story that had appeared in one of the annuals, and like I say, it's all there for you to colour, just as the other stories were. I think this is the final story actually in this. Yeah, so that was part 1, and now we move on to part 2, chapter 2, The Voodoo Planet. Just like the annual, it's broken into 2 sections, part 1 and part 2. I think in the annuals they separated the stories as well, so they had part 1 and some of them did, some of them didn't, but they had part 1 and they had another story in the middle, and then a part 2 behind them on some of the annuals. And in other annuals they were just one story followed straight after the other. And there we have it, and that is coming to the end of the story there. And it says, we have a planet in mind for you, one on which you can sustain yourself, but where there is no living being you can harm. A planetary person? I'll go mad. A prison? I'll go mad. You might call it solitary confinement, Dresser. So there we are. That brings you to the end of the book. And yeah, and that's a great little comic book these are. Now, these books were produced by World Distributors early on in the year. They used to do the annuals come to the end of the year, around about September, October, November time, so that they were there for Christmas, because obviously it was a staple diet for everyone to receive an annual in their Christmas stockings or their Christmas sacks on Christmas morning. So most of the annuals were released late in the year. But of course, in order to keep you interested in your TV programs and not wait till the end of the year, and also to gain revenue, they released the smaller comic albums in the early part of the year, around about March, April time, around near Easter. These were produced and released, and it was basically to tie you in until the next annual came out. But these ones had certain twists, so some of them had activities to do. This particular one, as we said, you can colour or crayon the pictures. It's all in black and white and are there for you to colour at your leisure. Other ones had dot-to-dots involved and games and things that you could play. So there was quite a variety of different comic albums that were produced, all based on the strips from the annuals that World Distributors had produced over the years. So how well did they do? Yeah, I mean, they all done very well. Obviously, they did produce them in mass quantities, just like the annuals. Now, these particular books, so these comic books, they weren't designed to last like the annuals were, because obviously the annuals were hardback books, and they were there for you to read, put on your bookshelf, pull out and read again whenever you liked. These ones were with activities in them. They were designed for you to read, colour, then when you finish with them, you throw them away. Although they still contained the full story. So for me, I think these were great value, because your favourite comic strips that were in the annuals then appeared in the comic album, and you could alter them in the colours that you particularly wanted. And if you weren't happy with the colours that were shown in the annual, you put your own colours in. So there we are. So I thought these were great, but they didn't sell as well as the annuals, obviously, but they were a great stop, and they did do big quantities. Obviously now we're going forward 50 years from 74 to 2024. Do they come up very often on the platforms? Yeah, they do pop up occasionally on the platforms. Don't get me wrong, they do appear from time to time in various different degrees of quality. Some of them are particularly worn. Some of them have been coloured all the way through. Some of them have part colouring like this one. Some of them are missing covers. Obviously the paper and practically everything, all of these you find, the paper is discoloured in some way because of the type of paper used. But yes, they do appear on the platforms. Some of them are in fantastic conditions when they appear, but those ones are the expensive ones. But yes, they do appear occasionally on the platforms, or alternatively, we at Midas Touch have managed to find quite a few of these comic albums. I think we've got probably about five or six of these that we've managed to obtain, and those comic book albums are currently available to purchase on the Midas Touch website, which you can get to quite simply by clicking the link below. It will take you straight to the website, where you'll be able to find this and many other vintage Star Trek items, and many other vintage toys, games and collectibles. Come to that, there's over 10,000 products currently available on the website for you to view and purchase at your leisure. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because we're uploading videos for every new item that goes into the website. There will be something for everybody, and I'm absolutely positive that this is something you won't want to miss, because we literally have thousands and thousands of new products which we're shooting videos for and uploading on a daily basis. So if there's something in particular you are looking for, something old that you've never been able to find, something quirky that you might want to buy for a friend, or perhaps just something from your childhood that you'd like to own again to help you recuperate those long lost childhood memories, well, stay tuned, keep watching, because you never know the next item we upload could be that item you've been looking for. Okay, that is it for me on this particular item. I do hope you've enjoyed reviewing this very old comic book album with me. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again next video. So bye for now.